Let's talk to Chris Snowdown, Head of Lifestyle Economics at the IEA, that's the Institute of Economic Affairs. They've produced a Nanny State Index. He himself has, in fact, for 2023. And so if you thought you were living in a nanny state, you'd be right. Chris, a very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike.
So, I mean, we've seen a lot of stories around about the nanny state lately, and I'm slightly worried that people's first grasp for any kind of help is to now ask the state for it. You know, I can't pay my electricity bill, give me a handout. I can't pay my mortgage, give me a handout. You know, I can't afford a car, I need some help with that. You know, the state seems to be very happy to borrow money from you and I to give to people who can't afford to live the lifestyle they're living.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things about a lot of government intervention is people become so used to it that they're unable to, try and make their own decisions. I was just reading a story from BBC Wales earlier about this panic about e-cigarettes.
Yeah.
Someone from Public Health Wales was saying that, well, the fact that they're legal and you can buy them in shops makes people think that they're perfectly safe and you should buy them. I mean, that's that kind of state you get to when people are used to the government banning everything.
Right. And that's the thing. I mean, people look at hygiene ratings of, kebab shops and go, well, I'm not going there. And you go, well, it's a kebab shop. You know, you've had too much to drink. It's 11 o'clock at night. Are you really going to be that bothered if it's got a 1 hygiene rating? Or do you really want a kebab? You know, you're not expecting it to be haute cuisine. It might even upset your tummy in the morning, but you're going to have one anyway, aren't you?
Well, it depends what kind of state you're in, Mike. I don't know. I mean, we're not really so worried about basic hygiene standards. What we're looking for in the Nanny State Index is this over-regulation, which is designed to stop people.
No, but it's all part of the same thing, though, isn't it? Because, I mean, before they had hygiene ratings, you had no clue what was going on in a restaurant, and now, supposedly, you're meant to judge it by some bozo who's gone in there and inspected it.
Well, that's really the Food Standards Agency. It was set up because there were a number of poisonings in restaurants.
Yeah.
And it's been interesting to see over the course of the last 20 years how there's been this mission creep that you get with these quangos. Mm. And I think it's one thing to be inspecting restaurants, make sure there's not rats running everywhere. But then it comes out and, when there's a World Cup on, it says to people, make sure you don't drink too much, try not to eat too many burgers.
Right.
And these agencies always go beyond their remit and start interfering in people's personal choices, informed choices.
Yes. Well, these are the same people that tell you to make sure you may wear a hat or something, or when you're travelling on the tube in London, please carry a bottle of water with you, and actually have these announcements going out. It's almost as though they want to be telling you how to live.
Well, there's a lot of bureaucrats in the country, and they all need a way of justifying their living, and they want to expand their bureaucracy. So, they're always looking at new things to get involved in. The latest one really is food and soft drinks, and in the Nanny State Index, the UK is the second worst country in Europe after Hungary. And Hungary has a huge number of taxes on all sorts of foods called the chips tax. But we don't really want to be emulating Hungary, nor do we want to be emulating Turkey, which comes top overall in the Nanny State Index.
Yeah, I mean, interesting conclusions in the report include that the number of countries that now place those kinds of taxes on sugary drinks and things have actually gone up. So there's more countries joining the old nanny state bandwagon.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this is down to governments trying to make some money. We're not alone in Britain in getting into a huge amount of debt, particularly over the course of the pandemic. And so governments are always keen to put taxes on things. Let's be honest, George Osborne put the tax on sugary drinks to make a bit of money. It wasn't because he was particularly bothered about the amount of sugar kids were drinking, I don't think. And if you look across Europe, where, most of the countries now, more than half the countries in the index are now taxing sugary drinks. Right. Most of those countries are also taxing drinks that don't have any sugar. They're just taxing fizzy drinks per se. So it gives the game away. I think this is not really about health. It's about trying to make a bit of money.
Well, it's a bit like Sadiq Khan and his clean air solution, isn't it? I mean, his solution is not to make the air cleaner, it's to charge you for polluting it. Yes,
indeed. And we just saw a story yesterday, didn't we, about how local councils are making a lot of money out of these 20-mile-an-hour limits. Often if you follow the money, you do find an explanation for a lot of this stuff. On the other hand, there's a lot of regulation that doesn't get the government any money. It just gets them a pat on the back from the likes of Jamie Oliver.
Yes. Well, again, I mean, we're living in a world where advice is everywhere around you, even if you don't want it. If you get in a car in London, you're more than likely to be stopped by somebody from Just Stop Oil who's going to tell you shouldn't be driving it. Or you might get to an airport to find that there's some protester there telling you shouldn't get on an aeroplane. Or, there's somebody down the supermarket pouring milk on the floor telling you that you shouldn't be drinking dairy products because it's killing the cows. I mean, where's it going to end?
Well, yeah, it's that kind of nannying and scolding, and also warnings all the time. You know, last week the Irish said they were going to start putting health warnings on alcohol. And, you know, at some point, I think it gets to the stage where, you know, there's so many warnings that people just kind of stop paying attention to them. If you're trying to make everything seem as if it's as dangerous as cigarettes, nothing is, you know. It's like with the nut allergy warnings, you know, a lot of companies, food companies, they're just covering their backs legally by saying this product may contain nuts. Often there's very little chance, if no chance at all, that it's going to contain nuts. And what happens? People who actually have nut allergies just get so used to seeing everything saying may contain nuts, they take their chances.
Right.
It's completely counterproductive.
It is. Also, do you remember when they brought in those calorie counts on menus, and then now they've done away with them again because apparently they became sort of counterproductive because either people didn't eat things that they thought were too calorific, or they just ignored it and went, oh, to hell with it. I know I'm going to get fat. I'm just going to eat it anyway.
They haven't got rid of them, actually, Mike. They've still got them there. But, yeah, it will be interesting to see how that plays out.
I thought they'd removed them all.
No, it came in as law last year, I think. There's no plans, as far as I know, to get rid of that. But, yeah, I mean, again, interesting unintended consequences with that, insofar as a lot of people with eating disorders were really unhappy about it. People who are suffering from anorexia, trying to get over this idea of calorie counting and constantly thinking about calories, they found the whole thing rather upsetting. So we shall see if it's ever properly evaluated what the trade-off is there between benefits and harms. But I'm not sure there's a great deal of benefit to it.
No, indeed. And I see one of the tweets you put out on the back of this is a Department of Health and Social Care tweet in which they say that introducing restrictions on where less healthy food is placed in supermarkets are expected to bring health benefits of over 57 billion quid. I love how they come up with these figures. Nobody can ever tell you how they do that, but how do you think they've come up with 57 billion?
I have absolutely no idea. They see, if they're being quoted correctly, they are pinning that 57 billion on a single policy, quite a small policy, which is just banning so-called junk food from being positioned at the end of aisles and at the entrance and at the exits. God knows. I mean, they have to do these impact assessments in order to make these policies look as if they're going to work. And if you've ever read one, you'll see that they're quite creative. But I don't know. Is it a typo? Did they mean 57 million? And if it's million, they will be using what they call intangible benefits.
Yes.
In other words, stuff they just make up.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? They do just make it up. It's a bit like all of the other warnings that you get for almost everything that we now do. You know, like don't walk too close to the cliff edge. You know, don't drive your car down a road which might be a bit too narrow. You know, it's incredible how this business, because it is a business now, has racked itself up. I mean, my favourite message, I think, from the COVID years was when somebody sent me a picture of a sign outside a GP surgery which said, "Please do not enter if you are unwell." It's like, it's a doctor's surgery, for God's sake, you know.
Yeah, no, I didn't see that one. Look, I mean, you're right. You know, we are surrounded by endless scares, really, you know, and, you know, some warnings are worthwhile. I think most of them are not. I think a lot of them are just patronising, tell us things that we already know. You know, a sunny day, make sure you open the windows, turn off the heating. Well, yeah, thanks for that.
And is there any,
all that kind of stuff.
I was going to say, is there any evidence that it is changing people's behaviour?
Well, the stuff that we look at in the Nanny State Index, which is mostly sin taxes, you know, on booze and sugary drinks and so on, and also various forms of regulation, so like minimum pricing, plain packaging, that kind of stuff. We map the scores that each country gets. The higher the score, the worse the country, basically, if you believe in freedom. Yeah. We map those scores against the life expectancy, against smoking rates, against per capita alcohol consumption. Absolutely no correlation with anything whatsoever. So this stuff really doesn't work. It just makes people a bit more miserable and a little bit poorer.
Yeah, and one of the things that's happening as a result of people being a little bit poorer and say, shopping getting more expensive, and particularly grocery shopping, is that loads of supermarkets are now getting a plague of shoplifting. We were doing a story last night about how in Marks and Spencer's in a lot of places now, they put out one steak, because they put like loads of steak out, people just nick them all.
Yeah. My local co-op has security tags on the joints of meat. Right. It's a sad sign of our times. If you see the price of meat, you can kind of understand why people are having to steal it.
Well, right. Well, this is it. I mean, how about they actually just put the prices down a bit? Maybe that would be a start, rather than actually, you know, hiding all the food.
Well, that's what Rishi Sunak is planning to do. We'll see how he gets on with that.
Yeah,
I think you'll find that supermarket margins are a bit tighter than he's expected.
Yes, I think he's the king of the nanny state, sadly. I mean, this is a guy who seems to want to put his nose into almost everything and advise us when we don't need it.
A big fan of Coca-Cola, though. He's one of his big hobbies is reading about Coca-Cola, and he's particularly keen on the Mexican version where they use a different type of sugar.
Oh, is he?
So I suspect deep down he's against the sugary drinks tax, but I doubt he will actually get around to repealing it.
I suppose he's got more to worry about than that at this particular moment in time. Christopher, thanks very much indeed. Christopher Snowdown, Head of Lifestyle Economics at the Institute for Economic Affairs. We do live in a very nanny state world now, don't we? Which seems to me to be entirely unnecessary. I mean, I don't need to be told to put one foot in front of the other. I don't need to be told. I was on an escalator the other day, and it was reminiscent of the old social distancing rules, because they had a sort of a pair of feet painted on one step, and then 5 steps further up, another pair of feet. So presumably you're supposed to stand 5 stairs away from the person next to you, and then another further 5 further back. I mean, why? Just why? What's the point? Ridiculous. This is Talk TV.